Hi, everyone. So I want to take a few minutes to go over the week 2 written responses assignment. All right, so remember, these questions are coming from the lessons this week, so chapters 2 and 3. Probably want to make sure that you have either gone through the PowerPoint and watched the video and read the chapter, some combination of those activities to make sure that you fully understand the information from chapters 2 and 3. Right? This is a file submission. The easiest way to complete this assignment is to use the Word document that I have attached to the instruction area. It looks just like this. That way you can download that to your device, fill in your answers, save it, and upload it. But you can also create your own Microsoft Word document. You can use Google Docs, OpenDoc, any file format that is pretty universal. The only one that I have problems with is dot pages. All right, so hopefully if there were any issues from week 1 with those assignments, then we've already resolved them, and hopefully this will be just fine. But we do have here questions from both chapters. All right, so our chapter 2 questions. It says, in Eastern philosophy, Taoists use an analogy between ice and water to explain the relationship between wisdom and reason and the passions or emotions. Wisdom and passions, like ice and water, are not two different things, but neither are they identical. The ice cube is not the same as, but is also not different from the water we put in the ice cube tray. Similarly, while thinking operates according to the rules of logic, emotion is governed by a different type of logic known as the logic of the heart. So compare and contrast this analogy, right, with the charioteer analogy used by Plato, which is in the traditional views of reason section is towards the beginning of chapter 2. Remember the charioteer, the human soul is divided into three parts. One part, which is our rational and reason, and then the other part is our emotions and physical cravings. And he said that all three parts need to be in harmony, but that ultimately reason is sort of the one that should be in the lead, the one that should be in control, right? So how do you feel like Plato's analogy compare, is similar or different from this analogy of ice and water? Right. Question number 2. Looking back at your own experience in high school and college, or perhaps even the workplace, were the males and females and or people of different racial and ethnic groups treated different? So any of your life experiences, right? What assumptions underlie the differences in treatment? Were any of the assumptions justified? Explain why or why not. Right? This is number 3. According to African philosopher W.J. Nadala, the Western belief that Africans are governed by their emotions, combined with the belief that reason and emotion are mutually exclusive and reason is superior to emotion, that has been the source of much of the prejudice against people of African descent. Basically, we value reason over emotion. And if this group of people we believe are ruled by their emotions, how has that shaped how we view them? How has that contributed to prejudice, right? So discuss the influence of this belief on race relations today. And then B, can you think of any other groups that have been marginalized or disregarded because they are assumed to be governed by their emotions? All right, number 4. Anwar al-Awlaki, allegedly the spiritual advisor to the terrorists of September 11th, 2001, said to journalists that telling people to give their lives for their faith is not an unusual idea. That's the same thing as telling Marines in this country, the United States, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Simple. Analyze this statement. What do you make of that? Number 5, discuss the argument that faith in God is the same as scientists' belief in the material world. The existence of God, or the divine, cannot be proven. Likewise, science seeks to prove that the world outside our own minds and bodies exists, even though we cannot definitively prove that the material world exists. It isn't just an idea in our mind. Yet it's reasonable for us to have faith in science and that the world does indeed exist outside of us. So if the similarity between faith in God and scientific faith in the existence of the material world is valid, why are some people so reluctant to accept the basic assumption of religion, but not the basic assumption of science? Support your answer. All right, now we have questions from chapter 3. So I've given a link here to an article called 8 Reasons Social Media is No Good for Kids, right? If you have trouble with the link, definitely reach out. I'll get the article to you in another way, right? It's a very quick read, you know. It's not like a scholarly journal article. It's more like a blog or a magazine article. So pretty quick, easy read. But 8 Reasons Social Media is No Good for Kids. Once you've read the article, discuss how the writer is using language or discourse to achieve their objective. Look especially at word choice, tone. Remember denotative versus connotative meanings you learn about. Just any type of emotive language that's being used, any type of rhetorical device that's being used. And if those terms aren't familiar with you just yet, and you haven't gone through the chapter, it'll make more sense once you do. But look at how the writer's use of language is being used to achieve their objective. 8 reasons social media is no good for kids. Right? Number 2, read the Say What article in the chapter 3 Critical Thinking in Action box. This is there in chapter 3. It's all about words that have been added to the English language, right? Then, after you've read the words that it discusses in the Say What article, I want you to identify 5 other words that have been added to the English language since 2010. Obviously ones that aren't on the list that's there in the book, right? Think of 5 other words or phrases that have been added to our language, not necessarily the dictionary, right? Just added to our language since 2010. Discuss what those words tell us about our society and changes since 2010. Right? Number 3, theologian Mary Daly writes, the biblical and popular image of God as a great patriarch in heaven has dominated the imagination of millions over thousands of years. The symbol of the Father God, spawned in the human imagination and plausible by patriarchy, has in turn rendered service to this type of society, patriarchy, by making its mechanism for the oppression of women appear right and fitting. Right? Patriarchy is when the men are in control, right? The fathers. By imagining God right? As being this father-like individual, the great Father in heaven. By having that idea, coming up with that idea, and then propagating that idea has allowed for patriarchy to occur, to exist. And that because God is the Father in heaven and men are the fathers on earth, that it has allowed for the oppression of women to seem perfectly acceptable. Right? So discuss Daly's claim that the identification of God as male is oppressive to women. Discuss whether we should change the language used in religious texts and services to gender-neutral language in light of the role language plays in shaping our worldview. Now note, we're not talking about changing the language simply because women are offended by it, because we don't even know if that's true or not. It's simply, we're talking about changing the language due to how important language is in shaping our worldview. Meaning, would changing the language to something more gender neutral benefit how women view themselves, how they view the world, and how the world views them, right? Nobody's being offended by the language being used in religious texts. I mean, maybe somewhere, I don't know. That's not what this question is about. It is, should we simply do the right thing and change the language to something more gender neutral so that we can combat that oppression? Or should we not? Okay. Number 4, how do the labels you use for yourself, as well as the labels others give you, influence your self-esteem and your goals? All right. Number 5, discuss how the use of emotive language in each of the following passages is used to promote a particular point of view. All right. You're going to read the passage. Then it says, what point of view do you think is being conveyed in this passage? Discuss how emotive language was used in the passage to promote that particular point of view. We've got A, B, C, and D. Okay. All right. So if I were you, I don't know, 2 chapters worth of questions. There's only 5 questions each chapter, but still, those are, it's not like yes or no answers here. I'll put some thought into these. I'm not sure I would work on them all at once. I mean, you certainly can. Everybody's different, but certainly think about tackling a couple of questions here and there, or maybe just splitting it up and doing the chapter 2 question at one point, and then coming back a little later in the week and doing the chapter 3 questions. I'm just saying it's an option. It would. I don't blame you for splitting it up, because sitting down and doing all 10 questions at once, some people might get overwhelmed with that, right? And you want to be able to think about these and give good responses, right? All right. If you have questions about any of the items for either chapter, definitely reach out. Otherwise, just do your best, and I look forward to reading your responses.